Welcome to week 5 of the winter studio. In this project, we're going to be getting creative with some paper. In this project, I'm going to show you how you can be creative with some paper and some light. I have covered this subject on the channel before, so if you've seen it, I do apologise. But I want to show this to the viewers that have not seen this project before and who might have fun doing this on their kitchen table when it's wet, cold and raining outside. So we are going to be getting creative with paper. So obviously we will need some paper. And the paper I'm using in this particular video is a heavyweight paper. So the results might be slightly different if you use a normal standard photocopy or printer paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build this up layer by layer, bit by bit, until we get to the end part where everything all comes together. That way you can follow along slowly. You can pause the video as and when you do each part of the project. And what I want to do is show you step by step with the images as to what difference it makes when we change something within the project. So first of all, we need some paper and we want to make some shapes out of this paper. Okay. So for this one, and I'll be honest with you, when it comes to this particular part of the project, you can do whatever you like. It's more abstracty, more creative than anything else. So the shape of your paper really doesn't matter. I'm going to go for a standard couple of easy shapes that are standard when I do this type of project or when I teach people how to do it. I've cut the paper in half and now I'm just going to fold it up like you would do if you was at primary school creating a fan in the summer. That's it. It's as simple as that. Now for this, that's too tall. Okay, I know that from experience. Okay, again, play around, experiment. If you want to see what it's like with a taller piece, then go ahead and do that. For me, I'm going to cut this down just a little bit. So we have that piece there, and then we have that piece. So we have two different versions. We can put them together as well. We can arrange them in all kinds of different arrangements. Let's place that over there. What we can do is, again, just come up with some weird shapes if you want to. Again, it doesn't matter what they are. And as you go on with this project, you'll come up with ideas for different shapes. So that one is just like a W or an M, depending which way around your camera is. And again, I'm going to cut it off. So all I'm doing, I'm just cutting a third off, so I have a longer piece and a shorter piece. So we've got different levels of paper. Now, if you want to come up with a more complex design, then you might need to use some paper clips to hold your paper together. So for instance, if I want to do a round design where the paper is in a circular formation, then you would want a paper clip to hold it together. Okay, but again, you don't have to have paper clips. You'll only need those if your design becomes very over the top complicated, as much as your imagination can come up with. Ordinarily, I would be setting up the whole project, then I'd set the camera. But what I want to do is I want to show you it bit by bit as we build up the different elements to this project. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set up the camera, and then we're going to start taking photos of the pieces of paper. So for that, again, I'm using my Stewart ST224 tripod. So with this tripod, I can invert the center column. And on this tripod, I have my Platyball Elite. I absolutely love this ball head. I really do. Right, my camera is set up here. Again, it's the OM1 Mark II with a 90mm macro. What I want to do is, I'm currently on the wildlife setting, which is C4. So I'm going to change that to manual, because this project doesn't really require those settings, obviously. If we look at our menu, come back to, hold on, where it is there. Right, now I do have night vision turned on. I want to turn that off because I want to see exactly what my camera is going to see. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off, and then for easy access for later on, I'm going to bring my menu over to high res shot. Now, because these winter projects are like a one-off just for winter, my camera is set up for wildlife or macro with insects. So I haven't assigned a button to the high-res shot. So all I need to do now is when I want to turn it on and off, I can just come to do that, okay? Just press the button and turn it on. While I'm setting up the shots, I'm not going to waste my time with high-res shot. We will need some lights. So this one is the Lume Cube Panel Pro 2. This is my favourite light for doing this type of work with. I'm also going to be using the Soonwell Magic Tube MT1s. I've got 2 of those, but we won't introduce those till later on when we want some separate colour. Now to start with, we are going to take our paper and we're just going to bring it into frame, turn on our light, which I'm going to come from this way, I think, because if I go that way, I'm just going to blind you, okay? We'll come from this direction. Okay, and we can roughly see our paper. I'm going to adjust my focusing, making sure that IS is turned off as well. And for these projects, I like to focus on the edge of the paper. So there's the edge of the paper. And as you can see, we really can't see much at all. So at this point, what we want to do is set up our camera so that we can see more of it. So I'm going to move it up. That'll do. And believe me, you're going to be doing that a lot in this project, okay? We're going to be moving it up, down, all kinds of different ways. Get this into position first. There we go. I don't know. What do you think? There you go. Actually, yeah. Let's go with that. So we have something there where we have like a W in our shot. Now, obviously, that is way too underexposed. So I'm going to bring down my f-stop to around 5.6. And these aren't magic numbers. These are just numbers I'm just coming up with out the top of my head. Okay, I'm thinking 5.6 because I want to focus on the edge of the paper while I want the desk out of focus. Now if we look at that, to me that looks like it's overexposed on the paper itself. I'm going to turn on 2-second timer, which is already turned on. That's good. But before we dive into the next part, I just want to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. Your generosity makes making these type of videos possible, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like to join the community and get access to exclusive content, behind the scenes updates and more, check out my Patreon. The link is in the description below. And I'm going to take a little picture and we'll see if it is indeed overexposed. I'd say yes. So where you're focusing is where you want your exposure to be correct. So although we are exposing correctly in the meter in the camera, it's metering the overall scene. We don't want the overall scene. We want the paper. So I can bring that up now and I'm looking at the edge of the paper to see where do I like it, and we'll take another picture. Okay, now that is the gist of the project. We take a paper and we are photographing pieces of paper. That's boring, okay? We want to make it more creative. To do that, we need to add some elements as well as other coloured lights. Now, I'm not going to add the coloured lights at this stage because my batteries will run down before I get to the final stage. But one thing we can do is to remove the desk. So take another piece of paper, pop it underneath so it fills the frame, and then bring your other sheet of paper back in. What I'm going to do, I'll just position it like that. And what I will do is I am actually going to change the colour. I'm going to bring in another light just to show you. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me take a picture first so you can see it step by step, okay? Right. So now if I bring in some light, let's come from the dark side. Can we see what's happening here now? Can you see what's happening now? We're starting to get a little bit creative. There we go. Now, this light here, you want to change the colour. Now let me do it so you can see on the overhead. That's my scene frequency, that was. We don't want that. We will for a future project. As these projects go on, we're going to be starting to get more complicated with more creative projects. So subscribe if you're enjoying these projects. Colour. Yeah, it's going to be blue. Okay. And that's way too bright. So let's come back up to our intensity and drop that intensity down to, let's say, 36%. Okay. And we'll take a picture. So I'm going to take that picture now and I'm going to throw it through Lightroom, and this is the result I get in Lightroom. Very nice. Now that is the basic setup. That is as simple as you can get it. If you don't have RGB lights, then you can use different lights that are around the house. Light bulbs, sunlight. Just be creative with the light. You could also use a white light, a torch, and you can do that type of effect. Now, to make things just a little bit more interesting, I'm going to turn these lights off, and we are going to create a backlight effect on this now. So let's get rid of all of that. And what we want to do is You remember our glass pane? This is the glass pane that we use for the water droplets on a glass pane. We're going to be using that exact same glass pane. And I'm going to bring in some cans of Coke. And we shall place our glass pane onto the cans, making sure that it is fully covering our centre area. We shall bring in our white paper. And at this point, the thinner the paper, the better. Mine is not exactly the thinnest. Type of paper you use will give you different results. If I place this underneath here, you can see what we're getting. Let me just take a picture. We're getting a nice, diffused, out of focus background. Now, if you look at the image carefully, you can see the patterning of how the paper is made up. So, if you think about that, the different types of material you can use can give you different results. So what I'm going to do is break off a sheet of kitchen toweling, put that underneath, bring down my shutter speed just a little bit so I get the blue I want. Okay, and so you can see there that just by changing the diffused material will give you a different look on your background. So bear that in mind when you are creating your masterpiece. So I'm going to start with the normal piece of paper, and again we shall place our creative piece of cardboard into shot. And for this I'm going to turn my light back to white, and I'm going to need it a lot brighter than that, Stu. Let's go 100%. Now of course we have elevated that platform up, so we're going to have to redo our focusing. It's on the paper, and I'll be honest with you, I really can't see if it's in focus. But I really want to build it up bit by bit so you can see how the images get built up. And again, we're a little bit too close, so I'm going to move the camera up again because we need to compensate for the height of our glass pane. So we'll redo the focusing again. And these are the type of decisions that you're going to make when you're doing this type of photography, because things as little as which side of the paper will give you different results. So for instance, if we use the side that was cut with the scissors, that will give a different texture on the side of the paper than it would do from the other side that was uncut. So play around. The best thing I can say is play around. We now have this lighting here, but what I'm going to do now is introduce a red and blue light. You know I love red and blue lights. So let's bring in our other tube lights. You can't have too many RGB lights, because you start doing projects like this, the more lights the better. Let's bring the red in. I'm going to bring down the red. I know from experience that the red drowns out the blue. So that's at 30% with red. And yeah, that's going to be right in front of me. That's where I'm going to place it. For now, I'm going to put it off to the side so you can actually see me. And we're going to bring in the other tube light, and this one's going to be blue. Now this tube light can come round the back. About there will do her. And about there for the red. They're all too bright, so I'm going to compensate for that by just adjusting my shutter speed. And of course, because I've adjusted the shutter speed, my background light isn't really working as well. There we go. So what I got to do is just hold it in place. So you can see there that that's without. Let me do it without. My focusing might not be correct. I'm just looking at the background, okay? So ignore the focusing, look at the background. That's without the light. And then let's put in the background light. So you can see it's very subtle differences, but it does make a difference. So what I'm going to do now is get my focusing absolutely bang on. And I do believe it is near enough there. So what I want to do is concentrate on this corner here. Okay, punch in. Yeah, that's near enough where I want it. So now at this stage, I'm going to turn on the high res shot. Absolutely love high res shot, I really do. Okay, on for tripod. There we go. Now the old saying, gaffer tape fixes everything. And gaffer tape, going to put the light on top like that and slide it under. There we go. And now let's take the shot. So let me get rid of that light just so you can see me better. So you can see there how we have created a creative abstracted type of image just from paper and light. Time to experiment now. what happens if we change the type of paper? So let's get rid of that. We'll bring in the other one. And what you want to do is, again, I'm just looking through the viewfinder to see, is there something that catches my eye? What about that? Okay, so again, we need to focus. The focus in here would be the bottom right corner. So let's punch in on the bottom right corner. Get our focusing correct. There we go. Put my light back underneath. Bring in the red one. Let's have a look. How do we want to place this? So I want it like that. Bring our blue around maybe. And the red's too bright for my liking, so I'm going to bring the dim down on that, I think. Not that much, Stu. Want to nicely balance it out. Okay, let's take a picture. So again, it's another one of those projects where two things are going to make your images stand out. Creativity, it's the shape of your paper, and light. Again, I've got to say it again, light is the key when doing this type of photography. Light is the key in all photography, to be honest. That's why wildlife photographers go out in the golden era to get their pictures, because light is key. So what you want to do now is experiment with the different backgrounds. Let's have a look what would happen with this one. You see there, that's going to give us a different result again. You want to play about with different shapes. So what happens if we bring in this like that? So let's go with, which way is my camera around? Okay. What about that? Okay, so I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, oh, let's have a look at that. So again, for this one, it would be that center part that would be in focus. So we'll punch in on there. Bring out my light so as I can see better. There we go. Now, what happens if you change the background light? Let's have a play with that, shall we? So if I bring this in now. Okay, interesting, interesting. Let's bring in one of the lights. Let's increase the power. And then I'll bring it around the back here. It's not bright enough, so if you look at that, that's the colour we're getting from the red, but the blue's over saturating it. It's over brighting. So it's too bright. Okay, that's what Stewart was trying to say in English, is the light is too bright. So I'm going to turn that down to, let's say 25. Pop him back under. And the reason it's too bright is, again, we've changed the material that our piece of paper is on. It's a lot thinner than the original pieces of paper. Okay. And again, it's still too bright. We're at 5%. Let's take it to 1%. Okay. Let's back it away a little bit. There we go. Now let's bring in the other lights. So we're going to have 3 lights again, but we're going to change the colour. So maybe a yellow or a green. So it looks like it's going to be green first. So let's pop in the green. Okay. Then we will adjust our shutter speed to get a better exposure. And again, I'm just looking at the EVF. I'm not even looking at the numbers. I don't even know what that number's at. I've no idea what the shutter speed is. Yeah. I'll just look at the EVF and I see something I like, I take a picture. There you go. Okay. Right, that's out of my way so you can see me now. Okay. Let me turn this one off. But there you go. A very simple, cost-effective project you can do at home in the winter. Just get yourself some shapes of paper, some lights, and start being creative. I want you to upload your images to Instagram and tag me on Instagram at StewartWoodArt, or you can use the Winter Studio hashtag so I can take a look at your work. Here are the results from this week's project. These images have been processed in Lightroom using my macro presets. Also, take a look at these images. These are some older images that are created with my full frame setup, the Canon EOS R, but it's using exactly the same method. These have also been edited using my macro presets. Check them out in the link in the description if you want to help support the channel. Other ways you can support the channel is by liking the video, commenting and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more projects like this. That's where I'm going to leave this video. My name's Stewart Wood. I want to thank you for getting to the end of this project, and I'll see you on next week's project.